Okay, so for this part of the lesson, I wanted to show you how to do a lot of this stuff on the TI-84. This is really critical because you have to be familiar with not only the TI-84, but also with Desmos. So I'm going to show this on the TI-84, and then we'll kind of talk about Desmos in the future. So right away, I'm going to just go to y equals. I have a bunch of stuff in here, and so I don't want all of that stuff. So I'm just going to click clear to get rid of it. I also notice that my plots are on, which means that there's going to be data that shows up. And so I'm going to go up and then hit enter to turn the plots off. I'm also going to do zoom 6, which is just going to give me the standard viewing window, which means that this is -10, this is 10, this is 10, this is -10. Okay. Now let's type in this quadratic into y equals, and then let's find all these features using the graphing calculator. So in y equals, we're going to type 2x squared plus 8x minus 2. Then you can hit graph. Okay, and I noticed that this graph is pretty good. I can see almost everything, but I do notice that it kind of gets cut off a little tiny bit at the very bottom here. I don't actually know if it does or not, but I want to just extend my window a little bit further down to make sure that I can see all of that stuff. So I'm going to change the window. I want to change the y minimum because the y is how far up and down the graph shows. The minimum is the bottom. So change the y minimum to maybe -15. Make sure you use the negative key and not the minus key. Hit graph. Okay, so now here it is. We have a nice looking parabola. We can see a lot of the features already. So what is the opening direction? Well, we can say that the opening direction is up. And the reason that I know that is because it looks like a cup and I can pour the liquid into it. You know what I'm saying? So the opening of the parabola is to the up side of the graph. Okay. I can also look at right at the equation and not even use the TI-84 for the vertical stretch or compression factor. So I could just write that A is 2 here. The axis of symmetry and the vertex, I'm actually going to need to use the calculator for. The y-intercept, I'm going to need to use the calculator for. So let's go to the calculate menu, which is second trace. And to figure out what the vertex is, I'm going to choose minimum. The reason I'm choosing minimum is because this value right here is the smallest possible value, the least possible value out of all of them on the graph. So up here, the y value is bigger than right here. So this is the vertex. This is the minimum value also. If the parabola was opening down, I would need to calculate a maximum. So to do this, I'm going to do second trace. That's the calculate menu, and I'm going to do minimum. When I do calculate a minimum, it's going to ask me 3 questions. It's going to ask me left bound, it's going to ask me right bound, and then it's going to ask me guess. And so we need to start with what is the furthest to the left that the graphing calculator is going to look at. Then we need to show it where the furthest to the right the graphing calculator is going to look at, and then where about should the calculator start looking. So the left bound is to the left of where the vertex is. It's always to the left of the vertex. It's not necessarily above or below. It's always to the left. Then hit enter. So scroll over here and hit enter. You can just use the arrow keys to do that. Then you're going to scroll over here to get to the right bound and hit enter. These do not have to be super precise, but you do want to make sure you give yourself a little bit of space. That's also why the window is so important, because you want to really set the window so that the calculator can really see what's going on. Then it says guess. And so the guess means you actually just have to scroll to where the vertex is and hit enter. Okay, so we get this. And the minimum is where the vertex is. So we can see that there's a flashing X right where the vertex is. And I'm going to say that -2.000002 is so close to -2 that we can just call it -2. So that's just like a rounding error in the calculator, and that's totally fine. We can just kind of be smarter than the calculator there. So we're going to say -2, comma, -10. That's the vertex. That means that the line of symmetry or axis of symmetry is x equals -2. And that makes sense too, right? Because right here is where we could fold the graph and the parabola would be on top of itself. And so that's the line x equals 2. The last thing we need to do is we can do the y-intercept. I'm going to do this 2 different ways. The first way we can look at C. And so we would see that the y-intercept is 0, comma, -2. The other way is we can do second calculate a value. And a value just means we're going to put in the x value and it's going to give us the y value. So if I put in 0, what do I get out for the y value? Well, it's -2. So there it is.